Hey, good people. This is Dear Woke Christian, a midday recording. Doing something a little bit different. I'm going to record just the middle of the day. I usually record on the weekends, but today I just had to get this off my chest. So, when you're a one trick pony, when you literally obsess over race in every shape, form, and fashion, you find white supremacy everywhere. I mean, you find it everywhere. And this example here, I think, might very well be I don't want to say the worst, because I'm sure somebody's going to pull up one that's even worse than this, but great mercy. When all you do is obsess over, I hate to say it, but when you obsess over white people to the degree that this we're going to look at today, this is what you get. So let's just jump into it, Jason. Let's go. No more build up. All right. So Lisa Sharon Harper, she had to tweet about Chris Rock and Will Smith. And I'm just going to tell you right now, this tweet is so bad. I pulled it up on my screen over here so I can look at it. So if you see me looking over it, it's just so it's bigger. This tweet is so bad. How bad is it? I think I'm going to disperse some dad jokes in between in order for you not to just lose your mind. Now, I've also made a list of things that I believe Will Smith could have done. I believe Jada Pinkett Smith could have done, and that Chris Rock could have done. So I'm going to also probably interdisperse those, because this tweet is so ridiculous that it's going to hurt your brain. And I don't want that to happen. So hopefully we can kind of dilute it a little bit, dilute the crazy by some comedy. So I might intersperse some dad jokes. We'll see, but definitely going to give you some things that I believe Will, Chris, and Jada could have done to offset this situation. But let us get to the situation at hand. Lisa Sharon Harper, in her wise wisdom, says it was Chris Rock's bow to white patriarchy by undercutting a sharp black woman's hair and calling her less than a woman in front of billions of people. Now, I know that I saw the slap heard around the world the next day, because I don't watch the Oscars and truly I don't care. But I didn't hear him say anything about her besides what he referenced about her hair in the movie G.I. Jane 2. I didn't hear him say that she was less than a woman, because this woman says that she's less than a woman in front of billions of people. I don't believe Chris said that. So I'm just going to let that ride, because it's going to get worse. However, so let's talk about that. I believe, I have a little list here. I believe that we're going to start with Will Smith. These are some things that I think Will Smith could have done besides, well, one of them is actually including going up on the podium, but besides slapping Chris Rock. Now, number one, Will Smith could have just laughed at it like he did. He had already laughed about it. It was funny to him. He thought it was funny to his wife. He could have just laughed at it and just left it alone. If he hadn't laughed, he could have, moved his chair closer to his wife, kind of gave her a little hand squeeze of assurance or something of that nature. He could have grabbed his wife's hand and left out of the theater. Because if I'm not mistaken, if you're going to win an Oscar, or if you are nominated for an Oscar, you don't have to be there in order to win. So he could have just said, you know what, we're going to do this. We'll do this from the green room. We'll just take this on out. We'll just go on outside. He could have done that. Now, he could have walked up on the stage and just gave a shout out to his wife, because she's dealing with her health issue since Chris brought the attention to it. He could have just put it out there and said, hey, thank y'all for supporting my wife. Thank you for caring about her and her health situation, and so on and so forth. That's something he could have done. And the last one I'm going to use in this segment is he could have just socked Chris Rock. And forget slapping. Man, knock that dude in the next week. He didn't have to slap him. He could have popped him clean, knocked him flat out. That's what he could have done. Those are some of the things that he could have done. All right, let's go back to this tweet and all of Sharon Harper's sage wisdom. This is the second one. All right, so the second tweet that she made. Here it is. It was Chris Rock's choice to belittle a human being with a disability, alopecia. The roots of white supremacy do not consider the disabled human. Therefore, they are unprotected from humiliation. So the only people that humiliate other people are rather white people, and particularly those dealing in white supremacy, according to Lisa Sharon Harper's wise sage wisdom. Where does she get that from? Like, what are you talking about? I'm sorry. It's just like ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? For real. Let's just be honest. What are you talking about? Sharon, for real. What are you talking about? Nobody's believing this mess anymore. All right. Here's a couple other things that Will could have done. So I last ended. He could have slugged Chris Rock. I mean, flattened him. He could have. Now, he could have protested from his seat, just like he did at the end. He told Chris Rock to keep his wife's name out of his mouth. He could have just shouted that from the from the floor. He could have done that. Now, he could have done nothing and addressed it at the podium when he won the award, or he could have addressed it somewhere off scene or offset. He could have done that. And that's all that Will Smith, I think, could have done. Those are just some of the options he had besides going up on stage and slapping Chris Tucker. Because keep in mind, a lot of people are saying that he was defending his wife, so on and so forth. His wife wasn't in danger. So there wasn't a defending your wife situation. Your wife wasn't in danger. So I don't believe that using that as the trope to say that, oh, he was defending his wife is going to fly because she wasn't in danger. I'm sorry, whether or not she was being made fun of, whatever like that. But she wasn't in danger, and therein is what I'm discussing there. All right, let's go with Lisa's more sage wisdom here. As I botched that up again, y'all know how I do with this thing. All right, we're gonna get this fixed. All right, let's get the next slide up because it's not showing up like it's supposed to. So let's just stop that for a second. I appreciate you. Next, I'm gonna talk about what I think Jada Smith could have and should have done to cover for this situation so it didn't get to where it was, where we saw it. And I think there's some things that she could have done that maybe would have made it a little bit better, or maybe made it less tumultuous, whatever like that. So we're going to talk about that in a moment after I pull the screen back up. All right, it's there. I think it's looking right. All right, so number 3, and it didn't move up like I wanted it to because reasons. All right, so she's just said that, talked about humiliation. So now number 3. I mean, talk about a one-trick pony. All right, so let me make sure that shows up on the screen light. It does not because reasons. All right, here we go. So this is what Lisa said in her sage wisdom. It was embedded in Will Smith's trauma triggered response. Will was abused by his father. That abuse was likely generational, tracing back to the trauma of the plantation beatings, whippings, family separation, Jim Crow terror, and grief. Now Smith holds that trauma in his own body. Why is it in this crowd here, the only people who have an excuse for bad behavior are people of high melanin? Why? Does she ever consider that there was racial injustice and inequities and ethnic injustices done on the continent before white people were introduced? Because following this ideology, this wicked cult-like ideology, there was no war in Africa before white people were introduced into the equation, following this logic. So black people never had any issues or beef with one another because we were always sunshine and rainbows. We were always peace and happy times. We never had any issues until white people were introduced into the equation. That is silly. That's ignorant. So let's talk about what Jada Smith, I think Jada Smith could have done. Number one, Jada Smith could have laughed it off. I understand that it's a health situation. I understand that it's not a comfortable situation, but she has been seen on Instagram saying that she's strong and such like that, and she's going to embrace it and all that kind of good jazz. Then go ahead and embrace it, friend. Just embrace it. I'm not saying that it's not struggle. I'm not saying that there's not issue. Not saying that it's not going to be difficult, but I mean, life is difficult. I mean, come on. So Jada Smith could have just laughed it off and just said, whatever. And when I see you at the party, I'm going to spit in your drink. I mean, she could have done that and kept it from this becoming what it is. Next, when Jada saw Will stand up, well, first of all, she gave him the eye, which kind of insinuated that, hey, I'm not cool with this and you need to do something about it. And sorry, I mean, I believe Will Smith is having some major issues in his life as a whole. So I think he was manipulated in order to respond in that way. I mean, he was receptive to that. Now, it's his fault that he got up and walked up there and hit that man in the face. That's 100% Will Smith's fault. What I'm saying is, however, that she didn't help it by looking at him with that look, and especially on his big night. All right, so she could have just let it roll. She could have also, I believe, she should have just stopped him. When she saw him getting up, she could have just grabbed his hand and, baby, come on, sit on down. It's okay. She could have done that, but she didn't. And I feel like that was part of the problem. I think Jada Smith could have, on her own, protested this event. She could have stood up and said, hey, that's not cool. Hey, she could have gone up there and slapped him if she wanted to. But hey, this is not cool, because she could have done that too. She just sat there and I guess looked in horror as her husband went up there and slapped Chris Rock. I mean, that's there. That was really an option that she had as well. Sadly, I think that Will Smith had more options, but Jada could have done some things as well to stop this from becoming what it has become, which is complete and utter just amazingness for what would have been his big night of winning the Oscar. Many people don't even recognize that he won an Oscar because they've only been talking about this situation, which I think is unfortunate for him. It is what it is. All right, so now we got Lisa Sharon Harper is waxing eloquently about Will Smith having trauma in his body because of slavery, which again is preposterous, but we're going to let her be preposterous because that's what Lisa Sharon Harper does. She just says preposterous and she gets away with preposterous. All right, so this episode is brought to you in part by Preposterous. All right, so let's finish this up. And then I'll give a few things I think Chris Rock could have done, and then my overall assessment of the slap heard around the world. All right. And is this showing up like I wanted to? Beautiful. All right, let's go to the slap. All right, here it goes. And we all saw the outcome of body trauma, and it shook us because we were watching internalized violence spill out on the international stage, and no one knew what to do. So they did what we have done in this nation since 1619. Nothing, literally no thing. Oscars 2022. All right, so I think it's adorable because I would love to hear, there are people calling today for Will Smith to be arrested, to go to jail for that. I'm not on that team. I mean, I hate it for him. I think it was poor judgment. If Chris Rock is okay with it, I know that's not the way the law works, but Chris Rock is okay with it, and he let bygones be bygones. Will Smith apologized. As much as I don't think the man should go to jail for that. I think that's horrible. However, I would love to hear what Lisa Sharon Harper would say if he went to jail for that. Because remember, she just said that we're doing nothing. We watched in horror and we did nothing, no thing. So what would she do if they sent Will Smith to jail? What would she do then? They did something. would she be okay with that? Or if they took his Oscar away, which I don't believe that they could, I don't think they should, but he won it and he earned it. So let the man have his Oscar. What would she want us to do? But see, this is part, and I've addressed Harper before because I do believe that her theology really drives. She's a perfect example of how your theology is informed by your worldview. So if you have a worldview that excludes God, then your theology and your practices are going to be completely off kilter. However, if you have a worldview that includes God and sees God as supreme, then that you look at your theology as well as your practice in a whole different way. Lisa Sharon Harper does not see God as supreme. He's not sovereign over everything in her ideology, in her book, so to speak. So that's why she makes so much hay about racism, why she makes so much hay about white supremacy and body trauma. What is body trauma? But it is what it is, and I think that's just adorable. So let me end this by giving a couple things I think Chris Tucker could have done. Number one, Chris Tucker could have not told the joke. Okay. I don't know. I didn't know all the things that were going on with Jada Smith. I'm gonna go on the side that he did not know what was going on with Jada Smith. I'm not 100% certain that's true. I'm just saying it for right now. I really don't care. But I'm going to say he didn't really know. And therefore, it was open game because, I mean, she's sitting there. She's right there in front of the stage. I mean, she's prime picking for a comedic joke, and there was a comedic joke. He could have not said anything. He could have, I mean, the time was pretty fast. However, once he noticed that she was not responding in kind, he could have said, hey, I apologize. He could have said that from the stage. I don't believe he would have had time because Will was on his way already. So, but he could have said, hey, I apologize. Hey, that was wrong. My bad. But I don't believe that he knew it. I'm not 100% he knew it. I know I've already read. I've seen tons of different conspiracies related to this. I don't know. I just know that we saw what we saw and a little bit that we were trying to extrapolate from the situation. I don't know if Chris Tucker could have done anything more than that. So I think, Will had more responsibility because he was the one that was offended, went up on stage and slapped him. Jada, I believe, kind of inadvertently egged him on or kind of subconsciously egged him on. And I think that she could have done something to stop him, grab her husband's hand and said, baby, it's okay. Go and have a seat. We're going to beat him up when we see him at the club tonight. You're going to win your Oscar. We're going to beat him up with the Oscar. And then, of course, Chris Tucker could have done something. But and a bonus is the Oscars could have done something. Though I just said I don't believe Chris Tucker did that on purpose, I don't believe that all of his jokes were freestyles. Now, maybe it was. Feel free to correct me down below if his joke was freestyle. However, if he had already planned that joke and the Oscars and they vetted the joke to make sure it was PC and make sure it was appropriate for the audience, I'm sure they probably do. But to some degree, if he wrote that joke and they saw it and they said, oh, yeah, that's okay, go ahead. Well, then the Oscars could have done something. And the handlers within the Oscars could have said, hey, yeah, don't dog out Jada Smith about her hair because she's kind of sensitive about that. That could have happened too. I'm not saying that it did. I'm not saying that it could have. Maybe it was freestyle and maybe just was being impromptu. Whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on in here and he was just spontaneous. Possible. I don't know. I don't really have a dog in the race, but I just want to bring that up. And I just needed something to break up the monotony of Lisa Sharon Harper's tweets because they go and show another thing about us is that we will, when you have a pet project, you want to bring that pet project to everything. You want that project to be every way, shape, or form be acknowledged. And Lisa Sharon Harper is a classic example because somehow or another, she's got to bring white supremacy in there when it was a black man who stood up on stage and smacked another black man because he insulted a black woman. How in the world do you bring white supremacy into that? I don't know. But Lisa Sharon Harper never fails to bring in foolishness. So this is Dear Woke Christian. I appreciate it. Feel free to please drop me that 3-piece special. Let me know what you think. Give me that like, that share, the comment. Please, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. I appreciate it. feel free to share this video. If you know somebody who follows Lisa Sharon Harper, I'd love to hear their thoughts on this matter. So in the meantime and in between time, everybody, I appreciate you greatly. Grace and peace.